Got to listen to that good crack. Colin, Nick, and Danny were tree maniacs. You got to listen to that good crack. How that sober life got these guys back on track.
You're very welcome to number 27 of the podcast. That's Good Craic. My name is Mick, and I'm here with my good friends Danny and Colin. So, Danny, you wave first. And Colin.
How are you doing?
Yeah. What you call it? We have been inundated with requests to start showing video. And by inundated, I mean one person asked us. So
and that was Danny.
And that was Danny. So we decided to jump.
I didn't even make me bait.
How it actually came about was this is our first That's Good Craic video, and we hope it's going to work because us in technology sometimes can be a bit off.
Oh no! Don't bring me into that bracket at all.
Yeah, sorry. If Colin got involved, we'd be a lot better at it. But I came up with an idea to start selling autographed pictures of us. You know what I mean? And then we realised that no one knows what we look like. So this is why we started this for today. And so that
brings to our next port of call, which there's currently pictures of Mick for sale on eBay, signed ones.
You can get T-shirts with him on it.
Yeah. I have a half dozen here that I can sell on, but after the lockdown, we'll be able to get way more out to you, so don't worry about the delay. What you call it? Yeah, how are you keeping, boys?
All good, man. All good.
All good in the hood. Surviving this lockdown, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No,
still alive, lads. Trying to keep positive.
Staying true to myself.
Yeah, deep. Yeah, this evening we are very happy to have on a guest. So we're going to get Danny to bring him in. His name is Aindrias de Staic, and we'll get him on here now, and I'll give you a little bit of an intro.
Go for it, Dan.
He's in now, lads. Are you there, Andreas?
Whoa!
But hey!
How you doing, boss?
What's the crack?
Good, I just got a cup of tea and a bit of chocolate there in the way.
100%. I'm fucking jealous now. I want chocolate.
I'm glad they're looking after you in the waiting room.
I have the tea as well.
Yeah, no, I wasn't 100%. It was called Brona's Handmade Irish Chocolate, dark and mocha.
What was the waiting room like? Nice?
It was grand. Wasn't the worst green room I've ever been in.
That's Good Craic green room. Yeah, nice one. Listen, Andreas, I'll give a bit of an introduction here for our listeners. Andreas de Staic is a gypsy trad musician who hails from the west of Ireland. He is known for heading the world-renowned band, the Latchicos. He's an actor, performance artist, storyteller, comedian extraordinare who moonlights as a TV presenter. He has travelled the world on 80 quid and is here this evening to tell us about his life as a troubadour free of drink and drugs for, 14 years. Well done. Yeah. So you're very welcome, Andreas. How are you keeping? What's the crack?
Oh, thanks. Great to be here on the Good Craic podcast. Where did you get that bio? It sounds great.
I made that up out of my head. Which
I was wondering, yeah.
I said that I sat here, and just in case you think I'm lying, there it is.
Wow,
just
good man.
Scrubbed it down. And
did you make that up, Mick?
Honest to God, yeah.
Deadly.
100%.
You must keep that one and stick it on the website.
All these hidden fucking talents I have, lads. You know what I mean?
There's us thinking that you do nothing.
Busy man.
Jesus Christ.
That took him all week, that one.
Yeah. A journal of my thoughts. But empty. No. Andreas, what you call it? To be honest with you, what kind of kicked it off me? Well, first of all, I thought about you coming on the podcast. I seen you at Electric Picnic. For those who don't know, it's a top festival in Ireland, and you and the Latchicos there were playing fantastic. Had the crowd hopping out of it. Very energetic performer and performance. And a lot of your songs are kind of related to your life, like abusing, drinking drugs, and but it's done in a comedic kind of way,
Yeah.
And what you call it. So you bring that into music. I just thought to myself, like, that would be a mad cunt to bring on the podcast. And and then my partner actually reminded me of it the other day, you know what I mean? And I was there, yeah, Jesus, I may fucking text him and see it, because I had your number before.
That's
and,
right.
Yeah, and just for those listening, the reason I had this number was I got it off. We have mutual friends and stuff. My partner's from the same area as Andreas, and I sporadically can get involved in organising musicians for fundraisers. And Andreas showed his, what would you say, his maturity as an artist, and turned it down. And he's 100% right to turn it down for the one I asked him to do, is like, because there is no tougher gig for an artist than to do a fundraiser. Because generally what happens is people who don't know you turn up at, and they don't pay any attention to you, and they talk over you. And you do it so much, and what I've learned from organising it is that you only ask a person once or twice, because after that they're done. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He had done his part, and you were dead right, because the guy who did it afterwards, that was his experience. We've had him on the podcast as well. But anyway, that said, just to give us a brief kind of, just a summary of your journey, you know what I mean? You started off, like, you know what I mean, in the West, and, like, you know what I mean, you were a musician and a bit of a header and a heavy drinker and whatever was going kind of job. But, how did you come into this kind of life that you're living now, this kind of musical troubadour?
I think, it was always in the background for me to get sober, at some level. But there was a while when I was drinking in my 20s where I was on that rock and roll suicide kind of thing. There was a lot of trad musicians, and I suppose in Ireland, like some of our great heroes, like Brendan Behan, Shane MacGowan, there was very much that. And here in the rest, there was a great fiddle player called Mickey Finn, who died in 1987 in Galway. He was 36 years old when he died of alcoholism. And I was born in Galway City, and I grew up in Mayo, and my father's from Clare. So I was always rambling up and down Mayo, Galway, Clare. I was in college in Sligo, but the music I loved was the music of Mickey Finn. He was high on drinking drugs, but I knew that he died young. So when I was young, I wanted to be rich and famous, but when that wasn't on the cards, when I was drinking and playing trad in my 20s and 30s, it was kind of either, the idea of like dying young and leaving. Well, Mickey Finn didn't leave any recordings really, but I wanted to leave a kind of a legacy as a legend. A fucking legend. He died and he drank and he played the fiddle. And so I was kind of in this queer place where, I'd be really high at the weekends. My drinking was, I was born in the late 70s. So by the late 90s, I was in my 20s. And, you know what Ireland was like. We didn't know we were coming into a Celtic Tiger, but by 98, 99, I'd be getting ran out of pubs in Sligo. I'd go to Galway for a few months. I'd get ran out of Galway because I was from there. I'd go up to Manorhamilton and Leitrim. Then I'd end up being in Mayo. Then I'd go to Clare. I was just rambling around. And sometimes on a Friday or Saturday, people liked to see me because I'd have the fiddle and be playing at parties, 21st birthdays of friends or whatever. But then on the Mondays and Tuesdays, no one wanted to know you. The rest of the world has gone back to work. There'd be some pubs, like I'd be stuck in, I'd find some town like Knock or Claremorris, and I'd spend a few days drinking. And I could kind of get away with kind of playing the fiddle and getting free drink. But that was becoming less and less accessible as the digital age came in, and, mobile phones came. Also, ecstasy was a big part of the scene, and my highs and my lows were becoming more extreme. And suddenly, like on a Tuesday, Wednesday morning, I'd be cracking open cans on my own. Cans of Dutch Gold or the bottle of Buckfast, to take away the pain, because I was suicidal at the way my life was going and the pain was too much. And I kept playing, and all the usual shite, like terrible relationships with girlfriends and getting thrown out of pubs. And I remember one of the worst was, and it sounds like a terrible thing to say, but you remember the morning of the 9/11? What year was that? 2002?
I do remember that well, actually.
What year was it? 2003 or 2001?
2001.
2001. Well, I woke up that morning and I was here in my mother's house, and there was people getting water at the back door. Down our way, in those days, the water was nicer in County Galway than it was in Mayo. They've since fixed it. But there used to be people from the village who used to come up and get water, and I heard somebody talking at the back door, and they were saying things like, Oh, it's all going to kick off now. Oh, it's dreadful. Oh, this is the worst it's ever been. And I thought they were talking about myself, and the lads had gone over to another village. No, we'd wrecked the pub, basically. Now, we didn't do that often. This was one of the worst sessions, you know. And I had brought a few friends from different parts of the country with me. Often on a Monday or a Tuesday, there'd be different lads, you know, Latchicos, we'd call them, or hangers on, or, you know, the lads that would be hanging on for the 3 pints when I'd be playing. And anyway, there was an awful fight broke out and pool tables, and I apparently fell off a bar stool and brought down a lampshade with my toe, and there was all these crazy stuff. But I remember, I remember hearing that talk at the back door, and I wanted this floor to swallow me up. I thought they were talking about us, you know. And I remember thinking, oh, if I can get out of this one now, I'll never drink again, you know, that kind of thing. And it sounds like an awful horrible thing to say, but by the time the day rolled on, and I went into the pub to find my fiddle and to get the pint for the cure, you know, they were talking about the 9/11 and the pictures of the two towers. And the lads were saying, well, this is great. They won't be talking about us now today, you know. But like that shows you the selfishness of the alcoholic in addiction, you know. And also the self-centeredness that we were all trapped so much in our own addiction, our own heads, our own selfishness that, you know, like I remember later on that week we went drinking over in Tuam, which is a town over here in North County Galway. And, you know, the drinking went on, of course. It didn't stop there. So if that was 2002, it was 2003, 2004, you know, I'd kind of fallen out with so many friends and family. I went off to Australia then. I was telling everyone here that I had a tour of Australia, you know. But that was shite. There was nothing really. And ended up more drinking and drugging there, you know. I landed in Bondi Junction, or County Bondi as it was, you know. It was full of Irish, you know.
Yeah.
And as we'd say, you'd be tired and emotional. And after the first day or two, you know, you'd be crying for home. But it wasn't just crying for home. You were tired and emotional after 6 weeks in Thailand doing hard drugs, you know.
Correct.
Yeah. So it was a lot of tears. And then it just was the same shite then. But what happened, what I noticed then was when I get thrown out of pubs in Australia, like the bouncers were often these big, huge guys, you know, big Aussie guys, big Maori guys. And it wasn't like around Galway or Sligo or Mayo where they'd half know you or they'd know there was no badness in you. Like these lads now would give you an awful hiding. And there was one shitty Irish pub, and it was in a shopping mall. You know that they're funny out there, like they have their off license can be a drive-through and a Irish pub. Like who would put an Irish pub in the middle of a shopping mall? But it was an elevator up to it and down to it, you know. And like they were kicking me down the up elevator. And like I'd keep so they thought this was hilarious. Like, and they'd be kicking me in the head and I'd go down and the elevator would bring me up again, like, and they'd give me another baiting. So I was just getting bait out of it, like. And then one of the fiddles went, and, you know, by the time when the fiddle went, like, it was tragic. You know, I had run down to Melbourne at that point. I ran out of all my luck, you know, in Sydney. And I was in a house in Melbourne then, and I was staying with these guys, and I managed to be off the drink for 2 or 3 weeks. And I remember thinking, this is it now, I've done it now, you know. But I could still handle the odd smoke, you know, I'd still be smoking the odd joint. And I got back to the house with these guys I lived with, and I thought they were cool when I moved into the house because they said they worked in the film industry. And sure, of course, I wanted to be a fucking film star, so I thought this would be great. And they were good guys. They worked in the lighting rigs and stuff. But they were hard workers, and they were older than me, and they were into drinking and gambling. And when I got home, they were drinking brandy. And I said, all right, you want a brandy? And I was thinking, sure, what harm will do me now when I'm going to bed, you know? Wouldn't it be grand to have one? Like, I'm not going to cause trouble now, I'm going to bed. So I had a few brandies, we finished off the bottle, and I went to bed and smoked a few joints. And I remember the little room I was in, it just be covered in bits of paper, because the whole lot of sobriety, I was always writing new things and poems on the wall and bits of stories and bits of diaries and pictures. And during the night, anyway, the joint must have gone up. Because when I woke up, it was the neighbours from the house next door were kicking in the door. The house was gone on fire. And the lads I lived with were gone to work, you know. And they pulled me out, the neighbours pulled me out, and we saw the house kind of go up a bit. And Jesus, when the boys come home, they weren't happy. They wanted to give me a serious bait. I wasn't too badly burnt, but the fiddle was gone. And, you know, I wanted to die again. I couldn't believe this had gone so bad, you know. And they were telling me to clean up the house, or they were literally going to get seriously physically violent with me. Like, now they were kind of only joking, as it turned out. But again, the mind of the alcoholic and me making a bigger deal, you know that come down that hangover, that needing a drink, that suicide, that crazy shite. So I kind of ran away anyway, and I ran back to Sydney, and I was on the busking in Sydney with a second-hand harmonica that I got for like $2 in an op shop or a pawn shop. I was begging on the street, like, and I met the Hare Krishnas. And I remember like being in a church earlier that day, like out getting out of the sun, you know, and I'd been walking and running so long, and I was so tired. You know, the kidneys would be burnt, you'd be shriveled up like a rasher, and my head was gone, and I was thinking it must be a mental illness. I didn't know if it was the drink or the drugs, because you know you could be off it for 2 or 3 weeks and your life wouldn't get better, to get worse. But then the Hare Krishnas used to give out free food to the homeless, and you know, and what I remember about being homeless in Australia was getting bitten by all the insects, you know, because like I didn't sleep rough that much at night. There was a pub called the Tankerville, or the Wankerville they used to call it. It was a 24-hour bar, and I used to be there all during the night, just drinking, taking it easy, you know, or you'd be talking shite. You'd meet someone with Irish background, you'd talk shite, they'd buy a few pints. And once it'd be bright, then I'd go out and I'd sleep on a park bench. They were safe enough to sleep during the day. Just the spiders and the ants that'd all be at you, like, or, you know, that kind of. One time I had a toothache and I got pills off somewhere for the pain, and someone gave me brandy and I went crazy and I got locked up. But other than that, we were safe enough on the park benches, you know. But like, anyway, this day, like I was saying, I was busking and the Hare Krishnas gave me the food. And when they gave me all that food, I hadn't eaten in days. I just collapsed. You know, when you haven't eaten in weeks and you eat a big feed, then you collapse, you know. And I was so full, I rolled in under the trolley where they were giving out the free food to the homeless. And I was telling them, take me to the temple and shave my head, because I'm ready. Whatever you guys are on now, I'm ready. I just wanted to escape. I wanted no more of the Tankerville, no more 24-hour bars. The fiddle was gone. I was gone. You know, I'd lost my mind, my violin, my whole lot. Like, I had lost a lot. Like, I was fucking sick of it. Like, I just knew. And I was nearly 30. You know what I mean? So I was like, well, I was 28, but I knew it was time. And now the thing is with the Hare Krishnas, the music, like they've only one song and the same words. It's like the Happy Birthday song, but it's the Hare Krishna. Happy birthday, Hare Krishna, you know. So, but it was around that time I looked out onto the trolley and I looked across the road and I saw these people. They were all different. Some people were dressed in overalls. Some people were dressed in business suits, men, women, all ages. Some people, you know, there were black, white, different colors, all kinds of people. And there was a sign above them saying NA. And I thought it must be the Newtown Association, because I was in Newtown, the suburb in Sydney. But it turned out to be one of those meetings, like, and anyway, I talked to a few of those people. Well, they had tea and coffee, and sure, after the big feed of Hare Krishna food, I love an old tea. So I talked to a few of them, and that was kind of the start of a certain journey, I suppose. And, you know, and after that, then I just started to get engaged. You know, people like you guys and people, I just started to try and surround myself with people that weren't drinking, certainly for the first few years as much as possible. And you know, since then it's been a whole different journey. Like, then the journey has now been all about like life. And you know, well, the first 7 years was just about giving up the drink, you know, and taking the alcohol. Once I took out the alcohol, it was easier to say no to drugs, you know. Because when I was drinking and drugging, you know, one was always the other. You know, you always felt like a cigarette after a few pints. Then you feel like a joint. Then you're having a few joints and a few pints. You'd always bump into someone then that has a few pills. And then, you know, that thing, oh, I can't come up with my ecstasy unless I have like lager and cider mixed. You know, I was always into these concoctions. Whereas now, like today, like, you know, I'm planting trees with my mother, and, you know, that's not rock and roll, but it's like very, I don't know what the word is. It just fills a part of the heart that can't be filled with drink or drugs, you know, or anything like it. It's more, you know, for me to be like in these small villages in Mayo and Roscommon during lockdown and to be so happy and content. Do you know what I mean? Like to have, like, we had a picnic today, myself and my mother, you know, tuna. We had tuna and a salad and stuff like that. And last night we had chicken. And like simple things, for those simple things to be so special. It's kind of like being on drugs, but in a different way, because you're on the drug of life, you know, you're just on this high. And I do a bit of jogging now, not much. I can run 3.2K. But, you know, I love those natural endorphins. And it's. I was saying to a guy I was running with during the week, I was saying, this is great. I said, the high is, it's a very gradual kind of a different high, you know. So I'm able now to really focus on things that are real. You know, I'm obviously not performing much during the lockdown. I might be performing next Tuesday online for Culture Ireland and just taking every day as it comes. But we learn when you're in sobriety for a while, and you learn, and especially the first 7 years are about giving up the drink, but the last 7 years have been more about, I don't even have really a deep spiritual practice, but I just kind of learn various tricks and various things in the spiritual toolbox where I can appreciate life one day at a time. And like in the middle of a crisis, you know, I'm used to dealing with a crisis because I used to have a crisis in my head. I'm used to dealing with life on life's terms. I'm used to dealing with an illness where you never know what's going to happen next. So I'm actually not too bad during the COVID thing. Of course, work as a performer is crazy. All my theatre work's cancelled, all the music work, everything, storytelling, comedy, everything's out the gap. But, you know, I have a peace of mind now that I thought I'd never have. And I have a wild life beyond my wildest dreams because I'm just enjoying it one day at a time. And just lucky to stick with the winners and surround myself with the right people. And I do things, it's like gardening, you know, I do things that keep my sobriety in check. If I find myself getting cranky or tick or not being grateful for life, I start to check in with the right people and the right program that might put me back on the right track. So, you know, that's why I'm the luckiest man in Ireland.
To bring you back a small bit, Andreas, about when you, like that transition, say, back to performing, you know, when you kind of, because I suppose, you know, like playing in the pubs and the sessions and all that, like there was always going to be drinking, drugs involved, like, you know, and like, what was that transition like for you? Because we often talk about here, it's really about like, you know, putting across all the things you can do and do better. Like, as you know, like as a musician, many musicians like always thought, you know what I mean, or they think, I only play really good when I'm out of it, like, you know, when it's not really the truth, like, you know, in their heads are playing better, but like if you're actually listening to them, it's not. But what was that transition like for you, like from, you know what I mean, into the, because your performance, for people that don't know, like we'll try and stick on some of your videos or a video onto it, but it's like real energetic, crazy kind of energy, you know what I mean, this mad kind of you know, that, like, you know, was that something that you built on gradually, or was it just, you know,
Yeah, well, I was very lucky. When by the time, you know, like I said there, I'd lost my violin. I'd kind of lost touch nearly with music in the end. You know, like especially as I said, when I was down in Australia, the Irish pubs were these big, huge pubs, and they'd be full of, you know, the big screen on for the footy and the AFL. Like I felt like that music had become obsolete to me. You know, and at the end of my drinking, I didn't know what music was anymore. You know, like because I'd abused music to get free drink. You know. And like some of the performance I used to give when I was drinking, like there probably was some good performances, but a lot of really shit ones as well. You know, where I was out of tune, the fiddler was out of tune. I think it was Mighty. And everyone, a few people that would be around me think it was Mighty because they were all drinking and on drugs as well. But sometimes when you're a musician, you're always getting invited to the late drink, you know, and you're entitled to it because technically you're working. So I'd be giving like great fucking violin virtuoso performances at 4 a.m. And sure, it might only be me and a barman. And the barman wouldn't even be looking or listening to me. He'd be on porn. Like if you watching porn on his phone, you know, just serving drinks, smoking joints with me for a bit of company because no one else wanted to be there. And like no one else would want to listen to me at 4 a.m. I gone mad in the fiddle of like a Tuesday morning or a Wednesday. Do you know what I mean? So by the time I got sober, I kind of started playing again. I had to start busking, you know. And I was down in Melbourne and the Greeks. There was a big Greek population in Melbourne and they were starting to give me food and I was starting to play a bit of Greek music and Irish music in this Greek restaurant called Piteous Blues. It was on Brunswick Street in Melbourne. And the Greeks would put food before the drink, you know what I mean? They're into food like the way Irish are into drink. And they love music and food and they like drinking as well, but they thought it was funny that I was an Irish guy called Andreas that looked Greek, that could play a bit of Greek music. And I used to play bouzouki as well. My dad played Irish bouzouki in the 70s, you know. So, you know, I was kind of coming back at it then. And suddenly, from learning a bit about Greek music, suddenly I was able to learn gypsy music. And from there, I was able to play gypsy jazz. Whereas jazz was always inaccessible to me. I'd sit in a jazz session in Galway in the 90s, they'd be playing in E flat and B flat. I couldn't do that on the fiddle. But when I learned gypsy jazz, then it was in D minor, then I could swing it. And from learning the Greek scales, I was learning a bit more that there was more to life than minor and major. There was all these other scales. There was all these tricks you could do. And I felt that part of my brain was opening up again because I was sober. You know what I mean? I was no longer kind of marinating. I was alive, like. So I was like, wow. So, and I was lucky to be kind of young. I was before 30 when I got sober. So I just started playing and writing music. And I was lucky then to fall in with a group in Melbourne who weren't really into booze. And like I kept going to meetings and putting the program first and meeting other people who weren't playing. And in Australia as well, maybe I was lucky to meet, hanging out with people. They might have the odd glass of wine or whatever, but I wasn't really hanging around with boozers. And I would do the odd gig in Irish pubs, like maybe Paddy's Day, where, for money. And then once or twice, then I fell off the wagon when I did that in the first few years, because it was hard not to refuse like free drink for the whole day. It took me a lot of work in those first few years to kind of to get focused, like. But when I came back to Ireland, then that was 2006, 2007. There was a revolution one year in Galway in the arts, where the local artists who had kind of largely been ignored by some of the major festivals, which is, ironically still topical today, they were putting on this festival called Project 06, and they says, "Go on, you there, Stacks, go up there and do your thing." And I was like, "What's my thing?" "I'm telling the stories and talking shite and playing the fiddle." So I started playing a bit of the Greek music I'd learnt and a bit of the gypsy music I'd picked up in Prague, and kind of stitched together a few stories. And that became a show called Around the World in 80 quid. And then it was sold out and everyone loved it. So I started getting bookings. People say, "You do that for my 60th birthday, or you do that for my 40th. So suddenly what was happening was the character, like I no longer had to be a drunken character in real life, but I was able to be a character on stage. And I found huge freedom in that, And around about that time, I heard that Tom Waits, for example, he's been sober for like 28 years, probably more now. But he can still come on and go, "I woke up sleeping in a car." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So to answer your question, that was kind of how that what do you call the word? Transition. Yeah, that's how the transition happened. Like I was still crazy in sobriety. Like coffee would drive me cracked. Like even now I'm eating chocolate. Like, so I love chocolate. I'll have tea. Like I'd still, in performing, I like to go a bit wild.
Yeah.
And maybe it is an anxiety. So I won't say that I come on and be totally relaxed, although sometimes that can be good crack too. Performing, I still go wild. And people would say to me, "Jesus, you were definitely on something." But I wouldn't be. I'd be high on the music and high on the life. And I'd be letting the character I'd be just maybe channeling some, we've songs like Sugar Beat about a guy who's hyperglycemic and he's eating sugar beet. Or we've songs about Dropkick Ballinasloe about a guy who's escaped from Ballinasloe. So I was drawing a lot on my previous world and people I knew and other people I've met on this journey. Some people who didn't make it and some people who are still making it. So, yeah, I was lucky to kind of make that transition, really. I was lucky the way it happened, yeah.
No, it's great, and we're often like advocating that, just showing like on all our different areas, like me with the music as well. I play a bit as well, and I just couldn't do it, man. When I used to be like, it was 8 years of my life, where it was just, I couldn't entertain it, like, when I was using or drinking or anything like that, because it's such a mess, and all then the things the lads have done, like DJing and photography and stuff like that, and it's like, whereas people can get in their head, I could imagine if you were doing your performances actually out of it, it would be a train wreck. It's so like, it's so, it has that crazy energy that, to try and rein that into a actual thing that would be watchable, I can imagine. But, I can understand too why people would imagine that you're on something like this. And like, were you always that way, that energetic? Because I would look at you and I'm just going, right, if you put drink or drugs into that, man, it just must be like, crazy. And were you always like that? Like, you know, because some people will say, like, when you have a problem with drink, a sign can be, because drink's meant to be a depressant, but like for some people it's not. It's like it's a stimulant. If you have a problem with drink, they say it's been proven that like it can be actually a stimulant, and I can relate to that. You know what I mean? When it get into me, that this, you know, energy would come into me, and it wouldn't be good. You know, it could often end up in, like you were saying, in the cop station or whatever like that, but. Was it like that for you? Like, I mean, was it like, or is it just the performer that comes out in you when you're doing the shows?
Yeah, I think, you know, like I was actually quite introverted as a child. You know, I didn't talk much, and I would have been born into a pretty middle class society in Galway. My father was an engineer with Galway City Council, and my mother was a doctor. When they separated, then we moved to Mayo, and I just kind of got into. I just didn't feel at first. I didn't feel I fitted in because I wasn't a farmer and I didn't play football, and I had that feeling of being uncomfortable in my own skin, which I think a lot of alcoholics have. I would have had it before. You know, it could be even I was born with it, I suppose. You know, because even when we lived in the estates in Galway, I didn't fit in because I went to national school out the country, or my parents were hippies or whatever. I had that thing of always never fitting in. And then next thing, in Mayo, I tried to fit in a bit then because I loved being out the country and I got into music and storytelling and all that. But it was the night the junior cert results came out when I was 15. There was a few guys from up the road, Down, which would be between here and Galway town. And they came down to our village here in Mayo, and we bought Linden Village cider. And we drank it in this little, there was a shed at the graveyard where old people parked their bicycles. And next thing, the cider hit me. Now, I drank once or twice before that. You know, I tried Heineken and it just made me puke. And I tried Shorts and it made me puke. But there was something in the cider, the sugar in the Linden Village. Remember, just be the 2 litre bottle, and you get it for about
I remember it well, yeah.
Yeah, it was like $1.99 for a 2 litre bottle.
Big, huge joke, yeah.
Yeah. So it was cheaper than £1 a litre, like it was cheaper than milk, like. So I drank that. We drank those big bottles of Linden Village, and we were meant to be going on to a disco in Hetford or Kong for the junior cert results, you know. But anyway, I climbed up on the roof of this galvanized shed, you know, and I started shouting and singing, you know, and the lads were there. They were drunk as well, and we were all going for it. And next thing, the galvanized rust went from under me. And I went down through it in a blaze of dust, you know. Could have cut the balls off me. But I burst out of the shed on a bicycle then, you know. I cycled up and down the town, shouting and roaring. And the character was born then, you know. You know, the next few days in school, everyone was saying, Andres. Like, they call me Andres in my home village, you know. I say, Andres, you're fucking crazy. Andres, I'm mad, going to Andres. And I often have big eyes. And I never, to be honest, you know, like, I'm like from Mayo, and my family from Mayo and Clare, so there was always a bit of that madness on both sides, and plenty of, you know, alcoholism and bipolar and stuff in the background. So the drink was definitely like set a lot of things on fire inside me. And from then on, from 15 right up till, as I said earlier, when I was like down in Australia and I was starting to hit the bottom, you know, so there was, you know, a good 10 or 14 years there of heavy drinking, because once that night, the Linden Village cider, that was it then. It was Bulmer cider. And after a while, then I learned how to drink reasonably for a while, you know, trying to do a beer special, you know, Smithwick's with a Guinness head. But then you be just doing brandy and black. You know, all the shite then. You know, if you have brandy, it'll be good for this. If you have gin and tonic, it's good for that. But it's all shite, you know. But yeah, the character was always, or the energy was always there, but you could never know what way it could go, you know. And if I was anxious or upset, when I got drink, then I'd get into fights or arguments, you know, or I'd be cantankerous. And I was just, you know, the way nowadays, if you're tired and somebody says something to you, you get cranky. It was like that more and more, because you see, your nervous system was just getting worn down with drinking drugs. So the crack was gone out of it, basically. You know, like I felt like drugs and alcohol, they just burned the crack out of it. They seem like good crack at the start, but after, they're like bleach. You know, it could clean your clothes, but if you put it all over your jeans, it'll just burn the color out of it. You know what I mean? You wouldn't put it on your face or on your balls. It'll just burn you. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So,
I'm looking at the thumbnails here, lads. I'm actually just realizing, like, you know what I mean, that I'm the only one that looks Irish. He actually,
yeah.
you could all be brothers. You could all be the same. You know what I mean? You all be Greek or something like that. You know?
No, we're indigenous. You're a blow. You're a Vikingo.
no, yeah, fuck
Viking.
off, blow-ins. That's all. Yeah.
You look like you could be from Germany or.
Yeah.
Behold.
No, the real Irish are dark. We're black Irish.
Yeah. Spaniards from the West.
I'd refer you all to Bob Quinn's 1981 documentary Atlantean about the inhabitants of Ireland, particularly in the West Coast, and the connections with North Africa.
Yeah, but they were all whacking fucking mushrooms out of it on RTE at that time, man. They were coming up with mad fucking, you know what I mean? Yeah. Mad conspiracy theories, Spanish. Yeah. But yeah, no, and these days, Andreas, we've been saying it ourselves. We did a podcast there a few weeks back about the experience of lockdown, you know, and just we were sharing our experience that, you know, we're well prepared for it in a way, you know what I mean, with our life of like recovery or living, drinking and alcohol free and fucking, you know, keeping things in the day and all that, you know, and it's been a great, and to hear you speaking of that, you know, it was kind of really stuck in my head when you were talking about your experiences with your mum. And for me, it's like about presence, being actually like, you know, and linking back again to what you said about the self-centeredness that you can, like, you know what I mean, I can relate to when I was carrying on, and that, you know, when you come in and you get rid of the drink and drugs and you start to kind of live a bit of a spiritual life, and that it's like you can actually be present in a moment. It's not, you're not stuck in your head, you know, directing the fucking the show that your life, you know what I mean, like trying to manipulate people and to, you know, just actually to be present and to take it in. It's wonderful. It's brilliant to actually be there and experience life like that. You know, it was nice to hear you talking about your mum. But we have a story. I think, no, Colin there, he has a bit of a story to tell. Like there was an interesting one, Andreas, happened there last night. Colin got a bit of a phone call.
Oh, really?
He wasn't going to tell you, but I decided that he is going to tell you.
You've thrown him in the
deep end.
He's no real choice now, or he could make up another story that didn't happen tonight, not tell it.
I went to Tesco's.
I think I'll make up another one.
I gave you a way out, brother.
Thanks. You should just text me that though, Danny. You know what I mean? No, so if my internet is being shitty as fuck now, so I apologize in advance. I just noticed I'm freezing and you're freezing a little bit. No, so the maddest thing ever happened to me last night. So I'm sitting home, 11 o'clock, 11:15, only after sticking on a cracking movie about two guys trying to escape from a South African prison, two white guys escaping from a white prison because they were trying to promote civil rights and so on and stuff like that. I get a phone call from a guy, I'm not going to name what he said his name was, but he said to me, well, you're supposed to meet me there at Tesco's with 5 lads. I'm like, what? He says to me, yeah, you're supposed to meet me at Tesco's. I was like, who's this man? You definitely have the wrong number. He goes, it's whatever his name was. And I says, yeah. I said, I said, it's Colin here. And he goes, yeah, Colin, that's right. And I says, no, it's not right. What are you talking about, man? I'm sitting home here watching Netflix and you're ringing me up telling me to meet you at Tesco's with 5 lads. I said, I have no idea what you're talking about. I was like, is that you, Mick? So he goes, hold on, I'll ring the big fella and I'll ring you back. All right. So I was like, the fucking big fella. So he rings me back a couple of minutes later and says to me, no, that's right, it's you, Colin. So you've been selected. I was like, selected for what? He goes, selected to collect 2 kilos of cocaine off us in the morning at such and such a place. And you're going to mind it for us for a few days. And there's nothing you can do about it.
What the
really?
hell?
This is what he said to me. All right, and this is true as God. That man sound convincing. I've watched enough gangster movies in my life. This guy was legit, right? So I didn't really want to talk about this, Mick, to be honest, you know.
Yeah.
So I said to him, all right, man, that's cool, but I'm definitely not meeting you. And no matter fucking what. So this phone call went on for 8 solid minutes.
And did he know you?
No, he didn't know me. He tried to pretend he knew me. That I said, look, I don't care what you say. I ain't doing jack shit. It's not happening. No way, it's not happening. My girlfriend was sitting beside me and she was getting worried. I was worried as well, to be honest. But the conversation dragged out that long that my worry turned into anger. So by the end of it, like, he's threatening me in every way. Like, says to me, no, that's it. I says, I don't know who you are. I don't know what you want, but I am not doing anything for you. And he said to me, well, we know who you are. We know where you live and all that. And I was like, that's grand, man, but I don't give a fuck. I'm not doing anything. I'm not doing it. He goes, right, well, then you're going to do something else first. Because I was getting angry at this time, kind of shouting a little bit. Not shouting, but more aggressive on the phone. He said to me, you're going to get someone else first. I was like, man, I am not fucking getting anyone. I'm not doing that. And he goes, you'll regret it. I said, come on down then. I don't care. Just come, because I'm not doing it. Like, you know, that went on for about 10 minutes. And then, or no, the whole conversation was about 8 minutes. And then he said to me, I got really angry. And he said to me, well, I'm only joking. You're on the radio, live on the radio. I was like, live on the radio? The man's after been threatening to shoot me and everything. You know? So.
Was it on the radio?
No, it wasn't. I think it was, I don't know what was going on, man. It was the most confusing situation.
That was just his out.
I was his out, but he was like only for
sure you weren't on radio?
It wasn't on radio. He said, pick up or check FM 104. I was like, man, I don't live in Dublin. I can't fucking check FM 104. Oh, meet me at Tesco with 5 lads to collect 2 kilos of cocaine. I was like, what are you talking about, man?
So if anyone does know or listen to FM 104, tell us what's Colin on it last night.
You never know, man. It could have been on it.
Man, Danny,
lottery phone call.
I've never heard a radio presenter threatening to shoot someone if they didn't mind 2 kilos of cocaine for them before.
Your average radio call, you know, in the West.
Never a dull moment. But
it's a pretty...
Jesus, that's some story.
That's serious, man.
It was a pretty... Man, kicking it, chilling at home, you know what I mean? Watching a good movie after having some nice food. Man's getting ready to sleep. Then this shit happens, you know. It was a very... At first, I was freaked out to fuck, like. But then it was just after, none of it made any sense, like. So I kind of just...
That's mental, man.
Well, I felt it had to be said. You know what I mean? It's a
I got the
crazy
pepper.
story.
I just got the pepper spray and the bats and this.
And the hurl. You want the hurl as well?
Hey, I swear on... Hey, Andreas, I swear on my life, my girlfriend slept with a hurl beside the bed.
Really?
She does every night, but...
You can't beat a good old hurl. Go away with that American shite, those baseball bats.
Ah, yeah.
But Andreas, you were saying you have something coming up, or it could be coming up online, a performance in a couple of days, is it? Were you saying for?
Yeah, I'm not allowed to
give out the info.
Yeah, just yet. They're ringing me now. So I'll hang on. They Yeah. No, there's just a different kind of online stuff, but I'll send it on to you anyway.
Yeah, sound.
There's all kinds of. I did an Insta takeover there for TG Car on Saturday night, and I'd be wouldn't be doing Instagram that much, but during this time of this lockdown, having to get familiar with all that is interesting,
There's a lot of learning to be had at the minute, isn't there?
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you, lads. During this time, is there any one thing you can kind of pick out that you've kind of like? Because one of the things I've decided to do is kind of not in the sense that you were doing, tool up for when this ends. Learn new things. So, is there anything you boys have learned? Andreas, have you picked up anything over the last?
Yeah, I've just got into gardening, and it's funny because the town where I'm living now in Clare, you couldn't get a spade. Everyone has gone mad for gardening, But I think that, in Ireland, it's so rare that we get a lot of weather and we've nothing to do, So I know that a lot of people I work with in Galway and Dublin, they're spending a lot of time online and Zoom meetings. This is the first Zoom meeting that I've agreed to do, And even since I've been on here, I saw 1 or 2 emails coming through, and I'm lucky. I haven't done that much online, really. I've been taking a bit of a break from it, because I'm enjoying. Normally, every weekend, I'd be doing something. There could be a fundraiser or a gig or somebody's birthday. There's an awful lot of obligations as well as paid gigs. But so I'm using the downtime just to do a bit of gardening. I mentioned earlier, like I'd been homeless a few times in my life, like, and that happens with the drink and the drugs. 1 minute you're staying on someone's couch, and the next minute, after a week, they might put the couch out the back, and then they move the couch up the yard. You know what I mean? And then they put it on the street, and then you're on the park bench, and that's how it happens. So I'm kind of trying to reverse that at the minute. My dad was from Clare, and I have a bit of land there, and I put fixing up an old house, and there's no roof on the house. Well, the roof has been taken off, so I put a mobile home beside it for a while I'm fixing that up. And so it's just one day at a time, kind of reversing out of hidden homeless, because I couldn't afford to pay rent in Galway or Dublin anymore.
It's ridiculous, isn't it?
Yeah, so I'm just back working in Mayo and Clare.
Even in Carlow, it's ridiculous, man.
Is it? Yeah. Oh, yeah, because Carlow's near Dublin. Well, they commute, don't they?
1,200 quid a month in
Is it?
Carlow.
Yeah.
How many bedrooms, man?
Mm.
How many?
3 bedroom.
3.
Yeah. So yeah, gardening and DIY is kind of what I've got into. Like, I know that's the cliche, but I'm enjoying it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But like I said, it's interesting because just when I was here, when I was there earlier, suddenly I was taking a huge interest in plants that have been in the garden for probably years. I'm like, oh, what's that? And look at the yellow flower and that. And where did we get that red one from? And so that's what I mean about suddenly living in the moment and being in a reality, like living in a beautiful reality.
Yeah. Like, I'd be a bit nervous, I suppose, with knowing that there are a lot of people under a lot of pressure at the minute, like in a way. But, to try and balance it out, I've noticed a lot of good, positive things about this, you know what I mean? And in my own life. And what I've noticed is I've rang a lot of people. I've been ringing way more people. I've been contacting people far more often than I would if I wasn't on lockdown. And that's a positive thing. And but I've noticed that, like, there are people that are actually, when they answer the phone, they're in better form. Do you know what I mean? Because people, like, the stress of modern life, getting up, going out, dropping your kids to a stranger's business to leave them there for the day, where you travel a couple of hours to work and then get back, you know what I mean? All this type of life that people have been living. And, and just having to make so much money hand over fist, and such an expensive life and everything like this. And people's, like my own life, because the way things are, that there's not much money coming in. It's like, life has just become so much simpler. And I'm looking going, of how much money goes out unnecessarily. You know what I mean? And it's
restaurants. How much money goes out on restaurants?
But just in life in general. And it's like, and I do think that, there's a lot, like, it takes 28 days to form habits, to form a habit. And my belief is this is going to go on longer than 28 days. And I'm hoping what's going to come of this is that, like, me ringing my mother every day, you know what I mean? There's a habit I'm forming, you know what I mean, that I didn't have before. I'm not going to lie. Now, I'm always in contact with my mum and all that type of thing. But, I'm that type of person that I could leave off talking to someone for months. And I just, like, there could be a close mate. It's just the way I am, you know what I mean? Yeah. And but like, I'm forming these different types of habits. I hope I'm forming a different habit of the way I use my time and the way I interact with people and all this type of stuff. But I do see that, like, I believe that there is, and hope that on this time, that these changing habits, you know what I mean, the change in our interactions with people, changes in the way we use our time, the way we spend money, and the way we contact people, like how often we do it, and all these things, or gardening, or whatever it may be. I just think it's a lot of opportunity to change habits. Like, I'm waking up in the morning and I'm in a meditation group. I'll do meditation. I'll do Wim Hof breathing. This guy sent me a Wim Hof thing. I've always wanted to kind of do it. I tried it a few times, but I was like, I have time now. What I do is get up, sit up in the bed, get comfortable, do my meditation, put on the Wim Hof thing, just a bit, or a yogi, listen to, do that for 3 rounds. Then I do a bit of journaling. Then I get up, have breakfast, you know what I mean? Start my day. And it's pretty nice, like, you know what I mean? Normally I'm up, like, you know what I mean, 10 to 6 in the morning, down, you know what I mean, busy going around doing things. So there's a lot of positives in it, you know what I mean? And that's not to make little of the hardships that are going on in people's lives. So that's my thing.
Well, you're recovering physically a lot as well, especially for someone like you, Mick, whose job is very, very physical, like, you know? How often do we get just to fucking chill, you know what I mean? Although it's having the opposite effect on me. My back back is fucked from sitting around all day long. You know, it is. I can't even run anymore. I can't run like a longer distance because the first couple of weeks of lockdown, I kind of just took the piss and I was sitting around or lying around watching stuff all the time. But now I'm trying to get back physical exercise and,
Yeah.
you know, get out and run, and the weather is becoming lovely. So I'm trying to get out with the dogs as much, once a day.
Jeez, I could do it once a day. Jesus, I tell you what, it's great, but now I want out, lads. I've had enough of it now, to be honest with you.
Really?
Yeah, it's
Are you living in Roscommon now, or where are you?
No, I'm in Tenerife.
Oh,
He's
nice.
I upgraded from the west, boy.
So we went in.
But they've been a couple of weeks before us, locked up a couple of weeks before us.
He's the fancy one here.
I'm a day 25, man, or 26. I don't even know at this stage. But ours is proper lockdown. You go outside your door, you can't even go out 30 meters without. You'd have to have a dog to outside. Like.
Really?
Yeah, you're like literally. If you're caught out in the street, you want a good reason why you're out there. Like, and they don't mess around here. They're not like, now go on inside now. They'll
get fines and all that.
I'm not saying nothing, right? Because all I say is they ask questions later. Put it that way. You know what I mean?
There's a copper looking in through your window there.
He's been there all week, man. I know what he's at. Yeah, so it's. I'll be honest with you, lads. Like, I have to agree with what you're saying because it's 100% been a massive learning curve. But definitely believe it needed to happen in my life for many reasons, and the lessons I learned. I'm at the point now I'd really like it to end and to get a little, even just to be able to go out and have a run, to be able to get outside and do something other than, you know, it feels like, honest to God, I've never been in prison, thank God, but this is not obviously like prison, but it's
house arrest. It's
house arrest, and honest to Jesus, I'm getting a bit kind of tired of it, like, to be honest with you, and but trying to as the days like this, and you know. Bringing back to exactly what you're saying, Andreas, is to actually come back and say, right, I've been through worse than this, bring it back to the basics, you know, what's the next thing I'm going to do? Or I heard many times the next right thing to do. So whatever it is, might be go and make a cup of tea, have a little meditation, have a little prayer, whatever it might be to kind of refocus the mind from wandering. Because like Mick, I can wander fierce easy off into, you know, when you worry about the future, like I can worry about the future, like, you know, and yeah, so it's really kind of bringing the tools that I've learned over the years from living a sober and clean life, you know what I mean? To avoid going absolutely mental, you know?
True though, isn't it? All those tools from all over the years, they all kind of come in quite handy there. You know?
Yeah, they do all the tools.
Like,
Yeah.
they do, yeah.
Absolutely.
The whole thing, just I don't mind being at home. The only thing that gets me is like not being able to like go downtown for a cup of coffee or that kind of stuff. But actually, just not being around people and being at home all the time, it doesn't bother me. You know, I would like to be going to the gym or going for a swim or something like that as well. But you know,
Jeez, I miss hitting a bag, lad. Honest to God, I miss hitting a bag or pads.
See all those rubber pads you have behind you, just stack them all up and drill 2 long screws through them and stand.
See, they're too valuable to be doing that with, to be
What's
destroyed.
in the
Like,
bag? The gym, is it?
yeah, just hitting a punch bag or pads. Like, I got Sahar, my girlfriend, she's quite small and
and Danny's quite big. He's 6'7".
I'm 6 foot 5, and I asked her to hold the pads, and she's just like this.
How many kilos is in the difference?
I don't what she's fit. I don't want to say. I'm not going to say her weight on air. So
she's small.
I'm 106 kilo. Put it that way.
Okay. So there's
she's about bit, half that.
Can you imagine Danny standing in front of you, double the size, flatten you?
Oh, the look of her face was priceless. Like, do you know what I mean? So, but yeah, it's. I definitely want this to end soon, but it is what it is. You have to accept, like, where you're at and what's going on, and yeah.
That's what it is, though. It is what it is, isn't it? That's it. Like, that's just it. It's not the end of the fucking world, like, realistically, you know? It's the end of the world. We'll all be good.
What did you say?
Me?
Yeah.
No, sorry. I said we'll all be good.
I thought you said it was, I had this thing in my head. I thought you said it was the end of the world. I was like, Jesus Christ.
No.
It's not that bad, is it?
It's not the end of the world. We'll all be grand.
Absolutely. Well, listen, lads, I think we have come to the conclusion, and I'd just like to thank Andreas for coming on. And I know we're probably destroying your name there, as Irish people do, anything outside the box. But how do you say it properly?
I think in Irish, like in South Connemara, they say Andreas.
Andreas.
In Clare, they say Andreas. And then in my village, they call me Andres. So,
That's
So
Spanish,
Andres.
like, man, isn't it? Andres. ¿Qué
Yeah,
tal,
I think-
Andres? ¿Cómo está?
¿Cómo estás, amigo? ¿Qué tal?
Muy bien, gracias, hombre.
Yeah.
For some reason, whenever I do a Spanish kind of say a few Spanish words, it comes out like a narco Mexican. I don't know why that is.
Yeah, you got the schmeeg as well.
I have the schmig. I'm working on my Mexican.
Yeah. I'll see you outside Tesco in the morning.
Fair play to you, boss.
What a big bag of compost for my own.
They had the right numbers on.
I'll have the spade.
Yeah, Colin has a spade.
Yeah.
I'm selling spades now, 2 for 100.
Yeah, that's what I want. I want a spade and a pickaxe.
It's no matter how everything's disappeared, isn't it? Everything. Anything that's any bit of crack, like, you know what I mean? Gym or fitness gear or spades.
Yeah.
Or pigs.
That's why we have the Good Crack podcast, because there's no crack left out there.
There's
fucking
never a bit of crack left out there.
Never either.
All right, boys. Thanks a million again. And
Thanks a million, man.
we'll see you again soon. Peace.
Take care, man. Nice chatting to you.
Okay, you two guys. Look forward to listening. See you now.
Good luck.
Got to listen to that good crack. Colin, Mick, and Danny were dreaming.